Go ahead, Sheikh. Go ahead, inshallah.
I should begin.
Yes, please.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma lakal hamdu kulluhu wa lakal shukru kulluhu. Wa nusalli wa nusallimu ala abdika wa rasulika Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Brothers and sisters, it's my honor and pleasure to welcome you to another episode in our series Illuminate Your Life, and a continuation of a study of 101 traditions from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And today I have this beautiful hadith. It's about shunning wasteful wastage and ostentatious behavior, which has become so rampant all over the world, and the Muslim community is not an exception. But we have an added responsibility to eliminate this vicious habit so that we can purge our lives of vices and get back to the straight path. Let me read the hadith in Arabic and translate and explain some of its meanings. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Kulu wa tasaddaqu, walbasu bi ghayri israfin wala makhiyala." Eat, give charity, and wear what you wish without wasting or showing off. So the Prophet said, eat, give charity, and wear what you wish. Of course, we have some guidelines what to eat and what not to eat, but as long as we are operating within those lawful limits, we are free to do what you wish, but avoiding the two bad habits: wastage and ostentation, showing off. Narrator is Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As radiyallahu anhuma, because the father and the son both were companions, and Abdullah was one of the most important compilers of traditions because he got a special permission from Rasulullah to write down the traditions. Of course, there are more than 700 traditions that have come down from his Sahifa, which is incorporated into the collections of the day. And it's recorded in Sahihun Nasai and other sources. This is a very, very important tradition. It's about spending and the use of wealth. One of the most important thing we need to remember that Islam teaches us that unlike many of us think, we are conditioned to think that wealth belongs to us. And that is not the case. We don't own wealth. Al malu malullah. Wealth is owned by Allah. And insofar we possess it, Allah gave it to us as a trust. So Allah is the one who owns the wealth and He gave it to us as a trust. So because the wealth in your hand is a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we must act responsibly. We must take care how we handle the wealth, how we get the wealth, how we use it, how we spend it. Allah says, Aminu billahi wa rasulihi wa anfiqu mimma ja'alakum mustakhlafina fih. Believe in Allah and His Messenger and spend from that over which He has appointed you as trustees. So we are trustees in the wealth we possess. It's not ours. It's Allah's given to us in trust. So there are guidelines, rules to follow when we handle this trust. وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَنفَقُوا لَمْ يُسْرِفُوا وَلَمْ يَقْتُرُوا وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ قَوَامًا. The guideline, and those who, when they spend, are neither wasteful nor stingy or miserly, but choose a middle course between the two, between wastefulness and stinginess or miserliness. As to what is allowed for us to eat, Allah says, يا أيها الناس كلوا مما في الأرض حلالا طيبا ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين. O mankind, O people, eat of what is lawful and good on earth, holistic, wholesome, and do not follow the footsteps of Shaitan. He is to you an open enemy. You know, this verse gives a constitution, a guideline, how to conduct ourselves. The words halal and tayyiban stipulate two important conditions. First, we ought to eat only that which Allah has declared as lawful for us. And the love also that which we earn through lawful and ethical means. Because many people, when they hear the word halal, they think as long as we eat halal meat, that's fine. Doesn't matter how we earn that money to buy the halal meat, maybe by cheating, lying, and practicing dubious methods, selling duplicate things, claiming them to be original, and things like that. So these are all deception, treachery, and cheating. So the money earned through this way is unlawful for us. Second, we must now never allow ourselves to be carried away by shaitan in earning, using, and consuming what Allah has bestowed on us. You know, all this, what's going around, the wasteful habits and indulgence in luxuries and comforts all over the world, especially the Muslim world. We cannot blame others, because if they don't believe in Islam, we cannot demand them to practice. As Muslims, we have a greater responsibility. So we should never allow ourselves to be carried away by shaitan, because all of these wasteful habits are traps of shaitan. These conditions are further explained in another verse. وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. And eat and drink, but do not be excessive, because Allah does not love the excessive, those who are extravagant. In other words, while we are allowed to eat what is lawful, we must never be wasteful. The hadith we first cited explains the above verse. We cited now, Ibn Abbas commented on it, saying, Kul ma shita wal bas ma shit, ma akhtawtika sanatan, sarafum wa makhiyara. Eat what you wish, dress what you wish, as long as you avoid two habits. Of course, those guidelines of lawful and ethical should be there. It is assumed, it's taken for granted. Once you observe those two conditions, eat what you wish, wear what you wish, as long as avoid two bad habits. What is that? Wastage and ostentation. Ali ibn Abi Talib radiallahu anhu said, you have the right to spend on yourself and your family while shunning wastage and ostentation. You also have the right to give charity as long as you shun wastage and ostentation. In both, these conditions are there. Even in charity, you cannot do so ostentatiously, wastefully. However, if you spend excessively to seek fame and glory, that is the work of shaitan. In Amal shaitan, this is وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا خُطُوَاتِ الشَّيْطَانِ. Explaining the Islamic wisdom on earning and spending, Imam Ibn al-Jawzi said, a wise person plans and manages his worldly livelihood wisely. If he is poor, he will strive to find a work or trade that would save him from being dependent on others, parasite on others, and achieve contentment, and to live in peace, preserving dignity and honor. If he is rich, he ought to manage his spending habits wisely so that he does not end up being bankrupt or poor and thus losing his dignity. Imam Mujahid also reminds us, this is the disciple of Ibn Abbas, a great mufassir of the Quran, if someone were to spend all his wealth entirely for promoting the cause of truth, of course, after spent on his family, it cannot be considered as wastage. If, on the other hand, he were to spend a single penny in other than the rightful way, that is considered wastage also. In other words, Islam teaches us to stick to the path of moderation. And the path of moderation means we must shun both extremes, miserliness and stinginess, extreme asceticism and shunning the lawful things that Allah has provided for us, as well as the other forms of excessive consumption and overspending. Therefore, we must never should be never flow with the tide of consumerism, which is the trap of shaitan. The Quran warned us against it. We should never flow with the tide, consumerism and materialism, which is the trap of shaitan. Ironically, it looks as if we have broken all records in wasteful habits, spending for weddings, feasts, and luxuries and comforts. Valuable resources of the nation, Muslim nation, are wasted away in extravagance by both rulers, the rich and the famous, and even the ordinary people. All the while, when millions cannot afford to have a morsel of food a day. So let's imbibe the lessons, learn the lessons of this beautiful hadith. Wealth is a trust in our hands, so we ought to handle it as such, as a trust. Islam allows us to earn wealth using only lawful and ethical means. We are to follow the path of moderation in spending. We ought to avoid being stingy and miserly. Likewise, we ought to shun excessive spending. We must never give in to consumerism and materialism, which are the traps of shaitan. Moderation in consumption and use of resources applies to all aspects of life. Feasts, weddings, celebrations, as well as spending on other comforts and luxuries, will surely be accountable for the misuse of wealth given to us as a trust by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So may Allah help us to stick to the path of moderation and avoid bad habits, wastage and tradition. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.